Here is Bryce, Henson, and Jake Stewart, your host of the Fit Life Orange County.
Hey friends, welcome back to another amazing episode of the Fit Life Orange County. For those of you who are new to the show, my name is Coach Bryce Henson, co-host of the show, also co-owner of Mission Viejo Fit Body Bootcamp, and have an awesome solo episode lined up for you today, which is really going to give you some takeaways, some practical action steps to get off the sidelines into a fitness regimen and routine, and that will help you for long-term success as well. And maybe you're already in a fitness regimen, but for whatever reason you fell off track. Well, this episode is going to be very valuable for you as well. You can use those same strategies to get back on track and really stay committed long-term, which is the name of the game. And when I was putting this episode together, I actually reminded me of the story where I met my wife, Coach Tatiana, for those of you familiar, who's also the co-owner of Mission Viejo Fit Body, and also the story around me learning another language and where I met her, which she comes from an island in the south of Brazil. So as that story goes, to kind of get a little backstory, for those of you new to the channel, I lived in Southern California in Orange County for nearly 20 years. I moved out here in 2004, so I'm more Californian than not, but I'm originally from the Midwest, which is a great place, amazing people, but not the fitness capital of the world. So when I came out to Southern California, I originally landed in LA and then moved down to Orange County. And fortuitous situation happened. One of my best friends from back home moved out west. We ended up living together in Orange County for a couple years, which he was my first fitness mentor. And he introduced me to circuit training and lifting weights and clean nutrition. But most importantly, he introduced me to coaching and accountability and going through that process where I trained with him for 2 years, but really hyper-focused for 6 months. I dropped 20 pounds of body fat. I put 20 pounds of lean muscle, but way more important to that, I changed my life. And what it did for me at the time, it gave me a ton of confidence and energy, enthusiasm, so much so, because that fitness gave me that foundational level of confidence, I always wanted to travel the world and, explore different places and eventually learn another language, which was really my big target, if you will. So with the newfound vigor of confidence, I ended up taking some travels throughout the U.S., went to Europe, and then ended up in 2008 in Christmas time visiting Brazil. And the reason that is I always wanted to visit Brazil. When I was a young kid, I loved the Carnival, the Mardi Gras parade. I was a huge soccer fan, still am to this day. Brazil's won 5 World Cups, so I had this infatuation. My grandma always loved Carnival as well, and specifically the Mardi Gras parades with the sambistas and all the color and lights in Rio de Janeiro. So I always had this affinity for it. Also, growing up in the Midwest, as I mentioned, my Christmases and my winters, I was shoveling a foot of snow. I still have a little PTSD because I like beautiful warm weather, which in Orange County, we have a lot of that, thankfully. So decided to take the trip in Christmas time in 2008 because Brazil has opposite seasons in the Southern Hemisphere. So I wanted to get a little sunshine, even though I was in California at the time. We have winters here. They're a bit mild than most. So in any case, visited Rio de Janeiro for about 2 weeks. Actually, the trip in Brazil, the total trip was 2 weeks. Visited Brazil for about a week or so, and it was just love at first sight. I love the culture, the rhythm, the beauty, the soccer, football as they call it. Just the culture is very warm, but most importantly, I just love the language. I mean, Latin language. I mean, Spanish, French, Italian. Most of us would consider those beautiful languages, and I thought, Brazilian Portuguese was that for sure. But more so than anything, just the rhythm in which they speak. In fact, they say that Brazilians sing more than they do speak, especially in the south of the country. So I just loved it, and I realized that this is the language that I wanted to learn. So I shot back to California after my trip was done, and I enrolled myself at a language door, a Portuguese for foreigners, class, if you will, at I think a company called Language Door in Irvine, next to the John Wayne Airport. And I was excited to dive in. I took a little bit of Spanish in high school, but really, I didn't learn much, very candidly. And as the weeks go on, I was excited. I was learning a little bit, but about a few months in, as the course was finishing, I realized I'm not gaining traction. I'm not gaining this quick enough. I need to actually do something bold and move myself to Brazil if I'm ever going to learn this, because I need to change my environment. I need to get in a situation where all I'm exposed to is Brazilian Portuguese if I have any fighting chance of making this a long-term success. So inspired by that, I reached out to my best friend, Adam, who is my fitness mentor I just referred to, his wife, Priscilla, who's from Rio de Janeiro. I said, hey, Priscilla, last year I went to Brazil, I went to Rio, as you know, and I loved it, but I want to move back, but I'm just not sold on Rio. I loved it, but it's very overwhelming, kind of like the Los Angeles of Brazil. Is there any other place, for example, if you were to move back to Brazil, what city would you live? And she said, Bryce, well, I've never been there before, but there's a little island in the very south of Brazil, has 47 beaches. It's called Florianópolis, and it's the vacation destination for South America. I've heard amazing things. I would highly encourage you to check out Florianópolis. So I never heard of it before, so I Googled and found some really cool things online. And then I had a few other Brazilian friends, so I started asking around, and if you can believe, this island called Florianópolis started to get on my radar. But it wasn't until I went out to dinner, I'll never forget, it was a Sunday evening, and it was a sushi restaurant in, not Irvine Spectrum, but Triangle Square in Costa Mesa. And I hadn't seen my buddy Mike for a long time, and he worked for American Airlines. So I was excited to grab some sushi with him. And we were chatting and catching up like old friends do. And the subject of travel in Brazil got brought up. And I was so excited. I was like, Mike, I just went there last year, went to Rio for about 7 days, ended up going to another spot in Argentina for the other 7. I just loved Brazil. I love Rio de Janeiro. It was an amazing experience. And he jumped in. He's like, well, Bryce, Rio is awesome, but there's an island in the south of the world with 47 beaches. And I'm thinking to myself, don't even say it. And literally, my friend, like out of a movie, we both uttered the words Florianópolis at the same time. And as it turns out, he had traveled the world working for the airline industry and just loved Florianópolis, met a bunch of friends there. And after that dinner, I just remember thinking to myself, someone's calling me here. So later that week, I ended up reaching out to my boss, and this is before COVID or remote working or virtual working and Zoom and all that was a thing. And I reached out to Eric. I said, Eric, I've been with you for a handful of years. You know, especially after my fitness transformation, I became your highest performing sales rep in the company. I'm really inspired. I always wanted to learn another language. By the way, one of the things I didn't mention earlier, I was a huge Kobe Bryant fan. So even, growing up in Michigan, I always loved the Lakers and Kobe Bryant and the dynasty of the Lakers. And many people don't know this, but Kobe Bryant spent 6 years in Italy in his youth, and he spoke fluent Italian. So I love it when the Lakers would win the championship or whatever, and not all the time, but sometimes he would give an interview to the Italian press, and I was really, really admired that. So that was really another aspect that planted that in my mind. So in my conversation with my boss, Eric, I said, this sounds crazy, but for all these reasons, I would love to move to Brazil and work remotely for a year. Would you be so kind to afford me that opportunity? And he turns and he said, Bryce, man, you've been with me from day one. Yes, you've performed. I'll let you go for a year, and then after that, we can reassess. So at that, I was invigorated. I was so excited, and I started putting my plan in place. I ended up reaching back to Mike. He introduced me to some contacts. He introduced me to his tour guide who set up my housing and logistics, rented a car. It took a few months, but everything, was falling into place. I had to get my visa, my student visa, at the Universidade Federal de Santa Catarina, which is a university there, which would allow me to learn Brazilian Portuguese, enroll in classes. So it took me a few months to kind of put everything together, and I finally did. And of course, my family knew. My close family knew what I was doing and why, but also what I decided to do is send out an email to my extended family and friends and let them know this is what I was doing and why. And I kid you not, a week before I leave, I get a call from my buddy Steve, who wasn't really a direct friend, but I was a mutual acquaintance, and our direct friend was Mark. And anyway, he calls me up and he's like, Bryce, this is Steve, Mark's buddy. I was like, oh, what's going on, Steve? And he's like, well, this sounds crazy, but Mark passed me on an email, and he said you're moving to this island in the south of Brazil. Is that right? I was like, dude, I'm moving next week. And he's like, well, this sounds freaking crazy. You know me. I grew up in Ohio, but I went to college with a girl from there, and I don't know if you have any friends there, but I'd be happy to put you in touch if you're interested. And I was like, my friend, I will take any help that you can possibly get, or I can get. So he put us in touch via email. We exchanged some messages, and his friend, it turns out, was like, hey, my schedule is flexible at this time. I speak fluent English, and, depending on when you get in, I'd be happy to pick you up in the airport and give you a tour or so, just show you my island. And I was like, yes, absolutely, taking a step back, thinking to myself, like, the stars are aligning here. So as you would imagine, super excited, get all my affairs in order, and the day comes, and I shoot myself on 3 planes, 24 hours of travel. And I finally arrived to this little island in the south of the world called Florianopolis. And you guessed it, my wife, Coach Tatiana, was there to pick me up. And it was love at first sight. And as the story goes, the rest is history. And actually, as they say in the fairy tales, if you will, the rest is history. It's not. It turns out I lived there on and off with her for a period of 2 years. It's a wild story, even more so, and I'll share that for another podcast. But what I can tell you is I was super excited to be there, of course, meet Tatiana and develop a relationship. But, first 30 days, I was soaking it all in. I was super excited. I'll never forget also, too, the reality set in about a month later and realized, holy smokes, what did I get myself into? I'm 7,000 miles from home. I know one gal who now is my wife, but she definitely I wasn't even dating her at the time. I can barely speak or ask for a glass of water or go to the bathroom. What did I get myself into? Because the challenge and the weight of the situation, drew near or became a reality. Coach Bryce here. Now, you might know me as the co-host of this podcast and the owner of Mission Viejo Fit Body. But what many people don't know is that began my fitness journey as a fitness transformation. Now, you see, circuit training and nutrition coaching absolutely changed my life after being overweight with a diet of mainly fast food in my late teens. Now, upon my fitness transformation in early 2007, yes, I gained a much better physique as I was overweight and I lacked lean muscle. But way more than burning fat and building lean muscle, I increased my self-confidence, my energy, and my vibrancy to live life on life's terms. Now, it's for these reasons that many people join our boot camp. Now, in fact, with our Ultimate Transformation Program, we guarantee that you'll lose at least 10 pounds within 6 weeks, or your program is free until you do. Now, go ahead and visit our website at missionviejofitbody.com. Now, thanks, and back to the show. In any case, as you would imagine, I stuck with it. I'm telling you the story, back 13 years removed, because this is in 2010, if you can believe. And thankfully, it's worked out for me. Tatiana is now my wife. She's a coach and co-owner of Mission Viejo Fit Body. As I mentioned earlier, have a Brazilian family, speak the language fluently. It's been an incredibly valuable and fulfilling experience. But when I look back, there were some lessons at play. And interestingly enough, the lessons that I want to provide you, yes, there are travel lessons and life lessons, but they're very much practical to your fitness. So I have 5 fitness lessons that I derived from this experience that I want to go ahead and showcase now. So lesson number 1 is you must create a plan and create structure just like I did. After I was inspired, I realized I was going to move to Florianopolis. It wasn't like I ended up flying the next day. I took some time, did some research, and created a plan. But then I took the leap of faith. And you just got to jump in and you got to do it, my friends, whether that's in fitness, in business, in life, whatever the case may be. You have to take that leap of faith on your fitness journey, just like I did in my world travel journey. And I'm so glad I did, because if I didn't get started, I wouldn't be here sharing this story and having this fulfilling life experience in the process. So my friends, do the research, figure out some structure in your program, but you got to take the leap of faith and you got to jump in. That's number 1. Number 2 is if you want to be successful in fitness and you're not finding success, you have to change your environment. Just like me, what I realized is I took language class or Brazilian Portuguese at the language door in Irvine. Great, highly recommend the training. But at the end of the day, my environment was still here in Orange County. I was learning in English. I was speaking English. I knew that if I was really going to do the thing, I needed to change my environment and I need to move myself to Brazil. And that's the same with your fitness. And of course, we have an awesome environment at Fit Body Bootcamp, but whether it's Fit Body or somewhere else, if you're struggling with your fitness, you need to change your environment. You get into a place where there's people supporting you, encouraging you, getting a coach and accountability partner is mission critical for your success. Because looking back, I wouldn't have been as successful unless I changed my environment. And that's the same with you in your fitness journey. Number 3. Looking back, it was way harder than I thought, and I share the first 6 months because, holy smokes, after the first 30 days of my experience, the reality is set in, the gravity of the situation set in, and that's the same for you when you either start or relaunch your fitness journey. It's going to be probably harder than you thought, especially when the newness wears off, but it's going to be way more valuable than you think. And that's why changing your environment, going back to the second step, is so powerful, because when you feel the resistance and you feel like, you know what, I want to throw in the towel, if you have that long-term approach, knowing that it's going to be tough at first, but it will get easier with time. And of course, if you stack that with changing your environment, you're going to rapidly increase your probability for success. And last but certainly not least, my friends, lesson number 4, whether it's learning a language like I have and continue to do so, because I still have a Brazilian Portuguese teacher, her name's Mara. I love dearly. She lives in Laguna Niguel, and I meet with her via Zoom every Sunday, sometimes in person, every so often. But what I realize is if I stop my learning, then eventually it's going to atrophy. And if I stop learning the language, even though I'm fluent right now, it's not my native language. In 1 year, 2 years, 5 years in the future, I would have lost a lot of what I learned. And that's the same with you in your fitness journey. So while it's important to start and gain some traction, your health and your fitness is a lifelong journey. And hopefully, my friends, this provides some deep perspective and some tangible takeaways and strategies. And if you have a need and you're interested in taking action on any of the lessons that I just laid out, I would highly encourage you to consider checking out Mission Viejo Fit Body. That way we can help you on your fitness and fat loss journey, not only now, but for the life journey that we're both on. So in any case, that is my learning lessons, and I want to impart on you today. I want to thank you so much for being subscribed to this channel. If you got a lot of value, which I hope you did, my only ask in return, like this video so that way we can keep producing this content for you for free. So that's all for today, and we'll see you in the next episode.